Hey everybody, this is Perch. I haven't started drinking yet. How are you, Joe?
I also haven't started drinking yet, so I can only be as good as that.
There you go. See, we're mixing it up here. So I don't know if you've been following this, but there is a upcoming Suicide Squad book called Get Joker, which really represents kind of the amazing combination of brand synergy of a Suicide Squad movie and a Batman line together, finally, bringing in all the sales. But this is Brian Azzarello. It's Alex Malev. And in this comic, it features a character, features members of the Suicide Squad. One of them is Wild Dog. Do you remember Wild Dog from way back?
Kinda.
It's funny because the people who know this story already, I'm watching people who are like, I'm a lifelong fan of Wild Dog. And Wild Dog always was kind of a vigilante book with somebody wearing a Jason mask where I felt like they were trying to do a takeoff of Friday the 13th a little bit with the visual. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So in this comic, they reveal that Wild Dog was one of the leaders of the January 6th insurrection on the Capitol building. Or riot, or a bunch of drunken a-holes screwing things up. However you view about this issue, that's not the point. So first off, my first question to you is, does it make sense to put the Capitol building riot, insurrection, drunken fools into a DC comic book?
I guess if it happened if this book is, nonfiction, sure. Because that means that New York and DC and Chicago, LA, all these places, as we know them today, exist in the DC universe, and everything that's happening in real life is happening in this fictionalized world. Is that what we're supposed to believe?
Well, none of the characters are wearing masks on the plane, so there appears to be no COVID. But they are referencing the Capitol. It creates a kind of a bit where, Harley Quinn and I think Captain Boomerang and some other people are like, I can't quite tell from the panels. The book isn't out yet,
Sure.
but we have seen the panels for this thing. And they're like, oh my God, you were in the Capitol riot. And they're kind of going back and forth, and it's a bit. But I don't see how this makes any sense in a world that I'm not sure. Has the DC universe established there is New York? I thought there was Metropolis and there's Gotham. Like
sometimes there's a New York and sometimes there isn't.
They also have things like Lex Luthor every now and then, like putting on a power suit and kidnapping the president and running off with him. It feels like a Capitol riot would not be a big deal in the DC universe.
Yeah, I don't want to downplay what happened, but I feel like if you put it in a comic, you are.
Yes.
Because Lex Luthor was president.
Yes.
And that, I think, was worse. I'm just throwing that out there. There were also, I don't know if you've read some of these comics, Perch, but, Brainiac has tried to destroy the Earth. I don't know if you remember what Cyborg Superman did to Coast City.
Yeah.
Or the infinite amount of alien invasions. Just infinite amount. The Dominators alone have probably done it. The Kuns. We could keep going on. How many times have we been at the mercy of Sinestro?
Didn't Grant Morrison write a book where Darkseid was able to use the anti-life equation to basically transform most of Earth into a kind of a pseudo-apocalypse? And there was a vampire Superman, and a lot of things went on there. I mean, Wonder Woman was brainwashed into a fury and was riding around on a giant leopard. I mean, I have a hard time believing the Suicide Squad's like, holy shit, you were in the Capitol riot? Oh my God. Especially coming from Harley Quinn.
Yeah, this is after death metal, right? Yes. Okay.
I find the whole thing peculiar on a number of different fronts. Like, I don't think that if you put the context of the Capitol riot in a DC comic, that it even is a blip in the top. And plus, doesn't this lead to questions like, if this was in the DC universe and it was a super terrible thing, enough so that like even Harley Quinn and like a guy who has a shark on his head are like, oh man, that's too far for me. Like, what is the Flash doing during the Capitol riot? Is he just sitting back and watching on TV? Like, feels like the Flash could take care of that problem very easily.
I don't see how that happens with the Flash and Superman and a lot of these characters being around to stop something like that.
Yeah.
I don't see why. I mean, I imagine, considering the state that Gotham's in, constantly being taken over by different people. I mean, we're in a DC world now that's run by the magistrate, which is just, that's such a pretentious fucking name. It's the magistrate. Like, I was reading some of the like old Mike Sikowski Wonder Woman comics, and there's a point where someone refers to like the police as the magistrate, and Wonder Woman like stops to say like, magistrate, that's like a weird, outdated term. Why would you say that?
It just all seems really, really strange, and including the dialogue where Wild Dog is saying things like, "What the fuck happened to freedom in this country, Kemosabe?" I mean, again, death metal in DC Linearverse time was like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and again, we preface all these things like, I know Brian a little bit. I work with Brian. I'm a big fan of his 100 Bullets, Wonder Woman.
Great series, absolutely.
Yeah. Our Joker and Luther were also fun. Fun's the wrong word, but I enjoyed those. Are there things he's written that I haven't enjoyed? Of course.
I'm sure this is probably going to be a fun book, actually. I do think it's wacky. And I mean, he's making a joke here. It's not meant to be taken seriously. But what's strange is, because we live in these hellish times we're in right now, everybody is taking it seriously. Yeah. And two people who are taking it, as it turns out, very seriously are Max Allan Collins and Terry Beattie, who are the original creators of Wild Dog, who are super pissed that he would be written as a Proud Boy militia owner, which seems to take this entire story into a whole new level of absurdity.
Oh, it sure does. And another thing too, again, because we don't have the comic, it's very possible that a panel or two after all of this is someone interjecting, being like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, which Capitol riot?"
Yes,
like that's very possible.
Yes, this is one of the dangers of reacting to things early, for sure.
Yeah, and that could end up being hilarious. This could be an incredible setup.
I absolutely agree. I just it is the statements that both made, from Max Allan Collins. My first reaction at discovering Wild Dog had been recruited into the Suicide Squad as the leader of the January 6th insurrection as a defecating Proud Boy-style seditionist was bewildered shock. Basically, which grew to rage, expressed mostly as fuck DC, fuck the writer. And I shared these sentiments with Wild Dog's artist and co-creator, Terry Beattie, and he basically tried to calm me down. But obviously, it gradually worked him into a rabid lather, too. And then he goes on about how much he hates all this, and that they weren't asked for their permission. And yes, it's true, DC owns it. And Brian Azzarello is basically says, as far as Brian, who I've never met, I have to wonder what kind of writer uses a creation of another writer in such a reckless, disrespectful manner. And I'll stop here to point out, it's Wild Dog. And two, like, in a world where we've seen characters taken over by Darkseid, murder other people, Speedy turned into a heroin addict. I mean, just like in that world, it seems just a little over the top that a character making a joke about taking a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk, which he does, seems like, is this really the worst possible offense that you could possibly get for your characters? I'm honestly just asking.
Well, another thing here too with the creators, and again, like they can feel however they want. I don't want to tell people how to feel. However, you would think they would know that. Again, we use this example all the time. Like, Brian didn't kick down the door to the editor's office and go, "You better let me do this to Wildcat," or I am just torching this whole project, and da da da. Like, that's not how it works.
I like how you care so little about the character, you just slipped it to Wildcat as well.
Yeah, I could care less about this guy. Sucks, but you know,
it seems sincere. I mean, Terry writes, I need to say loud and clear what DC and Azarello are currently presenting is not my wild dog, and neither Max nor I approve. There is already pretty much a zero chance of me ever working for DC again. If they didn't call when they did the recent Batman Adventures revival, they're not going to call. As noticed elsewhere, the damage is already done. There will forever be a comic book panel in which a character I co-created brags about taking a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I mean, what?
You think about this stuff, and again, a lot of times the way these things work tend to be writer, artist, whoever's working on the book or whoever's plotting it gets the permission from the editor or editorial, and sometimes editorial has to ask around and make sure characters aren't being used. And this happened to be a character that Brian was able to use for this book.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess here's kind of one of the age-old questions, and it maybe is the good summary for you to get your take on it. If you do work for Marvel or you do work for DC and you create a character over there and you're very proud of this character you created, but at the end of the day, DC owns that character.
Yeah.
What is the responsibility of DC to call you up? And because, I mean, part of the two went on and on and on and on. Trust me, like on Facebook, talking about how angry.
No, I get it that they, unless it's in your contract, they have no obligation to tell you anything.
Legally, they don't.
Yeah.
But this just is a nice guy. I mean, the funny thing is, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the editor here and go, would I have thought to call up Max and Terry and say, hey, Brian has 4 panels in this comic that's a joke about Wild Dog shitting on Nancy Pelosi's desk. Are you okay with that? Like, I don't think I'd make that call.
But here's the thing: it doesn't matter if they're okay with. Like, you would just be making the call of like, hey, we're just letting you know this is happening.
Yeah. I don't even know I'd let them know. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest. Like, it seems like one of the big sins here is,
But that you can't function that way, because anyone who does, like, what are you going to do? Have an editor spend their entire day every time Bendis does an issue of Justice League being like, all right, let's call the Superman estate. All right, let's call the Batman. All right, let's call. You can't. That's not a thing. You can't do that.
It would be a terrible life. I mean, with Bendis's book, you'd constantly be like, "Hey, are you okay? We're going to have this character sound like a jackass. Are you okay with that?" I mean, like every issue, it's stuck.
That's not a thing. There's no manpower bandwidth for that, and the vast majority of creators, it would just upset them.
No, it would. And so, again, I'm trying to figure out the line here. And maybe, not maybe, a lot of this is tied into the very intense feelings people have about the Capitol and Trump and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't remember seeing letters like this when, say, Wally West went crazy and murdered all these people who are in therapy. Like, the creators were not writing in to talk about their character getting brutally murdered by a psychotic Wally West who turned into a serial killer temporarily and then tried to hide it. Nobody, I didn't see a lot of writers complaining, but here, this one little joke is really, I don't know. I admit to being baffled here.
No, that's fair. In all fairness, with Wally, I'm pretty sure John Broome and Carmine Infantino are both dead.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, but I'm talking about the people he killed. No. I guess all we have, as long as the original creators are dead, you can do whatever you want.
There you go. But
okay.
But yeah, it's I don't get the appeal of doing some of these things because again, we've talked about this before. Maybe by the time this book comes out, it's going to be what 7-8 months since that happened, and then by the time the trade comes out, it'll be like a year.
Yeah.
And then when people, you're hoping this stuff's somewhat evergreen, especially Black Label books. The idea is that you want to put out evergreen, mature content that people can pick up whenever, like Three Jokers. So there are going to be people that buy this 3-4 years from now. And I get that right now, we think these things will be remembered and talked about by everyone forever. But in 3 or 4 years, there are going to be people buying this, and later on, that are going to be like, what the hell are they talking about?
Well, unfortunately, it feels like where the Capitol and that riot and everything is concerned, it feels like the news agencies will keep that in everybody's minds forever. But your point is exactly right. I don't know why. The funny part is I don't know why you would do this in the first place in a world where it's not even super clear if the Capitol exists in the same way. It makes the heroes who live in that world super stupid. They just like the Flash, Superman, like who couldn't have taken care of this? And then third, like the reaction from the writers feels strange, and I just don't know how. Again, I don't know. I get that maybe they don't like the politics of it, the inference that Wild Dog is is right wing, and that's really offensive. But again, we've seen characters possessed by dark side murdering people. I mean, did anybody talk to the creator of Dr. Light if they were cool about what went on in Identity Crisis? I
don't think so. But part of this just makes you create your own like headcanon and go like based on the reactions that the creators of Wild Stallion came up with, where it makes you think, did either Brian or the editor go like, it's really going to piss them off? This is what we're going to do. Just watch.
You never know.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, thank you very much. I love these baffling topics with you.
Yeah, it is truly baffling, and I don't think anyone's gonna, start looking through like, back issues. Was it Wild Cougar?
Yeah.
I just don't see this happening. Like I don't get it. No offense to people that created them. Like be proud of your creations. They've created way more characters. They've technically created infinite more characters than I have at DC. Yeah. So hey.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's the multiverse. There could be all different versions of Wild Pig.
Wild Hog, I think is
Wild Hog
works better. Yeah, that's the joke.
Yeah.